Hey folks, this is Dr. Don Ford, and I want to talk to you today about the first part of the strategic management model, defining the business. It's very, very critical that you define the business right up front. You need to know who you are, what you're all about, and in order to do this, we've got some tools that I want to take you through and show you. So kick back, relax, and let's talk about defining the business. I'm going to start with the strategic management model. This is the model. This is basically your textbook laid out in pictorial fashion, okay? And as we talked about before, you start out by defining the business, then you do a very good internal and external analysis, forecast your needs and incoming production, decide your strategy, and then implement, and then finish it up with controls, everything you measure that you feed back into the analysis section. But let's talk for this particular session about defining the business. It's important right up front that you know everything about your business. So we start with the mission statement, the vision statement, the major goals, the values of your organization. What kind of philosophy do you have? Do you have ethics in every decision that you make? And what's the leadership like? We need to know all this up front. If I ask you to come into a company and uh, analyze that company, you wouldn't jump right into the ledger book. You would want to know right up front everything you could. You want to see their mission statement. You want to see their vision statement. You would definitely want to see the major institutional goals that they have. You'd want to read everything you could find. You'd want to see every standard operating procedure, every manual. You'd want to talk to people. You'd want to get everybody together and talk to the employees, talk to management, talk to them all together, manage by walking around. All these things would be your starting point for analyzing a business because all these are very important. You look at the mission statement, find out if they follow the mission statement. Critical. So this model you'll see more. I have a video out with about the strategic management model as a whole. We're going to take it a piece at a time now and start with define the business. So one thing about it, if you don't properly strategically plan, you could make a big mistake. And so this particular one is an epic fail. Here's the things that go into defining the business, and there's more that you could put in there, but these are the basics: the purpose, the mission, the vision, major institutional goals, all policies, the philosophy, ethics, values, the legal side, their current strategy, and of course, it all revolves around the leadership of the organization. So, what's the purpose? Well, the purpose is what do you do as a company? It's critical that business and organization has a strategic purpose. Federal Express is not an alternate mail delivery provider. It is a full service communication company. Define your business the way that describes why they are in the market and how they hold a competitive advantage. What is unique about your business? So, um, the stakeholder model, and I have a video out on the stakeholder model, but there's a lot of stakeholders in your company that you need to understand right up front. Your employees are stakeholders. Your customers are definitely stakeholders. If you don't please them, you don't stay in business. The environment around you is a stakeholder. Your shareholders are stakeholders. The civic organizations and the community you work in are stakeholders. The political atmosphere in the country and definitely in the community you work in are stakeholders. Government becomes a stakeholder in your company. Whether you have unions or don't have unions, they are stakeholders in your company. The thought of getting a union or the union is actually there. The trade association you belong to is a stakeholder, and of course the competition stakeholders, because what they do drives what you do, and society at large is a stakeholder. And this is true for a for-profit, not-for-profit, or government agency. It doesn't really matter. And a lot of times these stakeholders have conflicting values. I guarantee you that the environmental folks in your community will have a different view than the shareholders. Shareholders are maximize shareholder wealth. So they might not want to spend that extra money to curb pollution. The environmental folks will want you to spend that extra money to curb pollution. So they'll have there a lot of times you'll be working for many masters with different points of view, and you have to find a way to prioritize and please those most important to your company and try to please all of them if at all possible. And I think you can do that if you really put your mind to it. The mission statement is so important, okay? The mission statement, it looks like you see it on the wall, and it really seems like it doesn't matter, but it matters considerably. If you say that you are going to do something, your employees are reading that mission statement, and if they go by there every day and say, "Oh, we don't do any of that," then you've lost some credibility. And so you should make sure that you do what you need to do according to your mission statement, and you need to change the mission statement as the mission changes. When I first went to Hodges University back in early 2000, um, I was in charge of the distance learning program. We were just beginning the program. And at that time, our mission was to serve the students in Southwest Florida. Well, when we added online, obviously that's a global initiative. We had to go back to the Board of Trustees and change our mission statement to say that we serve a global community. Now, why was that important? We could still offer distance learning, but it told our employees that we were doing something different and going somewhere. It told our students that good things were happening, and it kept the Board of Trustees informed in what we were doing. So it served a lot of purposes, and this is just an example right here. Um, Also, the vision. You need a vision for your company. It used to be you'd have a 20-year vision, but that's no longer true. The Most companies are looking 3 to 5 years down the road at most. But again, and I'll go back to my time when I first came to when I was with Hodges University back in 1992, before I left and did other things. The At the bottom of we were in a shopping plaza, and at the bottom of the escalator was a engineered architectural drawing of the building that we were going to build. And that every day when you came to work, that's what you seen. So it told the employees that we have a vision, we're moving forward. It told the students we're not going to be in this shopping plaza forever. And sure enough, we built the building about 10 years later. Probably doesn't look a thing like that engineer drawing, but we have a vision, and we continue to update that vision. So you have to make sure that your vision is updated to reflect what you're going to do in the world. Okay. And so the next thing I want to talk about is your major institutional goals. Every organization has major institutional goals, and you assign those right up front in the strategic management model. You might want to be the best low-cost provider in your industry. There probably will be 10 to 12 major institutional goals, but you establish those goals as to what you as a company want to be. And then when your departments create their goals, they work toward those goals of the organization. And so every goal in the department should coincide with a major institutional goal for the organization. You can't have departments out there stovepiping and creating their own mission and vision and goals. Everything that the departments do must support the overall strategic goals of the company. And so it's important in defining the business that you identify your major strategic goals. Um, and this is just an example: build economic and employment opportunities, build a safer and healthier and more environmental sustainable community, build partnerships, connections, and connectivity, build cultural capital, provide better municipal service. So if you look at this, this is probably a city, a county, or something. And now, when you go to the utility department, they can work toward goal number 2, building a safer, healthier, and more environmental sustainable community. Um, they can actually work toward all of them, and they can work toward goal 5. They don't have to work toward every one of them, though. Maybe their goals for the year will be coinciding with goal 2 and goal 5, but they'll do things that you can trace right back to these major institutional goals. So it's critical you identify those in the define the business section of the strategic management model. Um, some other goals can be in a lot of areas: production, finance, marketing, efficiency, growth, retention, customer service. There's lots of other ones. You're only limited by your imagination and your vision for your own company. So, a philosophy. Every company needs a philosophy, and they need to follow that philosophy, and everyone needs to be on board with that philosophy. When I worked with Troy, it used to be Troy State University, it was Troy University. I was the operations director, and I was sent down to Miami to open a site. And I was looking at different locations where we could offer our site, and we were trying to partner with either a military organization or some type of organization like that. And I had to know if they said, well, hey, can you come in and offer the Masters of Public Administration in our workplace and cater it a little bit to our work? And if I had to pick up the phone every day and call my boss and say, can we do this? And tell them I'd get back to them, I would have lost all credibility. I had to understand that we had a company philosophy and that within the bounds of that philosophy, I could operate. And it made me a better leader and manager and made the organization stronger. So this is just an example here of Bob Evans' philosophy. The important thing is that your philosophy is followed. If philosophy is consistency, integrity, safety, teamwork, honesty, quality, sincerity, and tradition. If you don't do those things, your employees know right away and your customers figure it out real fast. The other part of defining the business is kind of understanding your culture. You can make the widgets work. The widgets will always work. It's not the widgets, it's people. You know, if you can manage people, you will have a very successful company. Okay? So you start out with all the things up front, the management's philosophy, vision, goals, etc., and how they do their job. And you go to the formal organization. Formal organization is the policies, procedures, and how you enforce those. Um, the informal organization, that's the water cooler talk. What you want is the employees when they're away from the office, they're saying, hey, this is a great company. You want to go to work, call this gentleman here. You need to come to work where I work. Unfortunately, we don't have that a lot of times in companies. And then the social environment. The social environment is more than just company picnics. We have to be diverse. We have to serve the community that we live in, and we have to get along with each other. We can hate each other for a 9-week class and get along fine, get out of there. We can't do that in the workplace. All this comes together and creates a culture. A lot of companies use this as their mantle to the world. The formal organization, IBM, Big Blue, Suits. That's what the image that they put forward to the world is. Do they have an informal and a social? Of course they do. Informal, Motorola, self-directed work teams. They put forward the informal organization persona to the outside world. Do they have a formal and a social? Of course. And then the social, there's Southwest Airlines. That's a really good example. They wear funny clothes, they sing in the aisle, they do really neat things. But do they have a formal organization or an informal? You better believe they do. They manage an airlines, and it's very important that everything works on an airplane. So then all of it goes down and ends up with productivity, basically. So the culture is very important to the organization. And then the leadership. What type of leadership do you have? And there's different leadership for different organizations. I've named a lot of the book answers, but really take a look at the type of leadership you have. Do you have the same philosophy? Are you all leading toward the same goals? Leadership is very important. So, and then you need to decide on your strategy. Don't try to change your strategy. That could happen maybe after you've done a really good analysis, but don't try to change it. Just sort of decide what strategy you have. Are you a low cost provider, focused differentiation, best cost? And if you're a not for profit or a government agency, then you have your own philosophy, like strategy, like customer service, whatever, and decide on that. Decide what you think up front is your strategy, and then we'll see if the analysis changes your mind. Okay, so this is the end of it, and this is the very first part of your define the business. In your company environment, defining the business is critical. It can be pages and pages of writing. It can be a lot of things that you can do. Typically in a research paper, unfortunately, it's a couple paragraphs because you need to spend most of your time on analysis and implementation. And so unless you're writing a dissertation, or a book, you can't spend as much time on defining the business as you'd like. Same with case studies. The first question of a case study is usually defining the business. You have to keep it pithy because of the size of paper you have to write, or a strategic audit. First portion is always to define the business portion, but you really need to work on the strategic management model as a whole. And I'll go back to that real fast because for your business, you have to have everything um, on. Oh, yeah, oh, sorry about that. For your business, everything has to mesh. But when you're writing a paper, sometimes you have to shortcut a couple of them. So if you want to really prioritize in a strategic management model, the analysis and the implementation are the most critical, and that's where you have to put a lot of your work if you're in a classroom setting. But if you're in your own workplace, which is hopefully what this is for, that part up front is critical. If you don't get it right in the define the business section, you're not going to be right in any of the other sections. And so it's very critical. So this is Dr. Don Four. I'll be back with other sections. I have a video out there with the strategic management model you can look at and get a complete overview. And I look forward to working with you. So thank you very much.